Oh God, please let this not be true, I thought as I weaved the car through traffic. He couldn't be serious, could he? Just half an hour ago, I was at the bank, helping a family get a loan for their first home. Then, the phone rang, the police. My husband had been seen at our house with a gun. A gun? I had asked in disbelief. Yes, they replied. A neighbor came by to pick something up and saw him. He seems to be threatening suicide. We need your help to talk him out of it. Suicide? But Connor loved life. He had always been so happy and lucky, why would he? It couldn't be true. I dismissed the thought as I turned onto our street, only to be met with a chaotic scene. Police cars were everywhere, lining the road, and even a truck from the local TV station was set up in Old Man Parker's yard. I tried to navigate through the crowd, but an officer stopped me. Miss, you need to step aside. That's my house, officer. My husband is in there, I yelled in panic. The officer hesitated for a moment before allowing me to proceed. As soon as I parked the car and got out, I was bombarded by the media. Is your husband violent, Mrs. Richards? Has he tried to kill himself before? Is he wanted for any other crimes? I had no idea how to respond. Why couldn't they just leave me alone? My husband needed me, but they surrounded me, blocking my way. Thankfully, an officer pulled me away from the vultures and led me across the street to a van. Several men were huddled around a small table, discussing the situation. I can put a sniper in the house. We should be able to get a clear shot, one of them said. We're not here to kill him, another man replied. We're here to help. But if he poses a threat, we'll have no choice. No. I shouted, unable to hold back any longer. Everyone turned to look at me. A female officer introduced me. This is Mrs. Richards. Thank you, Carrie, one of the men said as he approached me. My name is Toby Curtis, and I'm a negotiator with the local police department. Can I ask you a few questions? Before I could respond, another man interrupted. We need to know how many guns he has. Could there be a militia inside? We don't own a gun, I said firmly. I have no idea where he got the one you're talking about. He must have bought it today. That's helpful, Toby said. We can check with local gun stores. Rick, could you let me do my job before we start talking about shooting? Toby snapped. The tension in the air was palpable, and I could feel panic rising within me. Are they seriously talking about shooting my husband? I asked, my voice trembling. Come with me, Mrs. Richards, Toby said, leading me away from the commotion. I need to ask you some more questions. Has your husband been depressed recently? No, not really, I lied to myself, wondering if I should tell him the truth. They didn't need to know everything. Toby sighed. Can I call you Jennifer? I nodded in agreement. Did you know your husband quit his job 2 days ago? No, he didn't. I exclaimed. We talked last night, and he was so happy. Was he happier than usual? Toby pressed. Well, we've had some issues, but we worked them out. He was happy. What kind of issues? Toby asked, his tone gentle but persistent. Personal problems, I muttered, not wanting to divulge too much. At that moment, another officer came running up to us. Toby, we've made contact with him. How? Toby asked, surprised. I thought the phone was broken. He's using a signal from the live truck across the street. Apparently, if they get exclusive broadcasting rights, they'll let us use their equipment. That doesn't feel right, Toby said, his brow furrowed. How is he sending them a signal? My husband used to work at the station, I explained. He was the engineer on their truck. He installed half that equipment himself. If anyone could do it, he could. They led me to the news truck, where a reporter was speaking into a microphone. To my shock, I saw Connor on one of the screens. His appearance had changed drastically. His hair, usually long, was now cut short, and his chest was bare. But what terrified me the most was the gun in his hand. Connor hated guns, and he knew I was afraid of them. Toby took the microphone from the reporter. "Connor, this is Toby Curtis. I'm here to help." "Shut up." Connor's voice boomed, filled with anger and despair. I had never heard him like that before. This wasn't my husband, it was someone else. "I know what you're trying to do," Connor continued. "But you can't stop me. I have to do this. I can't live with what I've done. I can't forgive myself. And she can't forgive me either." "Who's she? Is that your wife?" "Jennifer is here. I can put her on if you want to talk to her." "You're lying. She's not there. You're trying to fool me." "How can we prove she's here, Connor?" "Show her to me. I won't believe it unless I see her." "Put her on the air." Toby turned to the reporter. "What's he talking about?" "It's a common thing in TV news," the reporter explained. "We can split the screen, he'll be on one side, and she'll be on the other. Set it up. We'll be on the air in 3 minutes." "Live?" I asked, bewildered by what was happening. "How else is he going to see you?" Toby replied calmly. In a blur of activity, I found myself in front of the camera, with a microphone attached and a strange device in my ear. Suddenly, I heard Connor's voice. "Is that you? Are you really there?" "Oh, Connor, what are you doing?" I pleaded, my heart breaking. "I'm doing what I should have done 2 weeks ago, after the party, after Sherry. I should have ended it, but I didn't. Now I have to pay." "Connor, that's in the past," I said desperately. "We've moved on. I've forgiven you." "But I can't forgive myself," he cried. "I was a good husband, but I ruined everything. I have to make things right." Tears filled my eyes. I had to save him. I couldn't let him destroy himself over something that was long behind us. "I violated my vows, and I made you do the same." I could feel the stares of the people around me, their eyes burning into me, but I had to keep going. He was so startled, so emotional, and dead serious. "Oh God, darling, I should have never done it, but I thought I had no other choice but to get even. You, Paul, it didn't mean a thing to me, but you enjoyed it, didn't you? I know you did. I made you listen. I made you degrade yourself. What kind of man does that? But we can get through this, darling. My revenge, it was a mistake. I never should have listened to Sherry." "I thought you weren't speaking to her anymore," he asked, clearly confused. I rushed to explain. "She came to me, she apologized. She said I had to get back at you." I think her own pain was talking, not her. "Jen, I love you, but I can't do this anymore. I slept with someone else. I betrayed your trust. I deserve to die, I can't live with what I've done." His words pierced me deeply. To my horror, he raised the gun to his head. "No. He's going to do it. I can't let this happen." The words flew out of my mouth before I even thought. "You never slept with Sherry." Everything went quiet. Everyone around us seemed stunned, but no one more than Connor, or me. I couldn't believe I had just told him the truth. "What are you talking about?" I woke up next to her. We were naked. She told me that we... He trailed off, unable to finish. "She's lying." I interrupted. "We drugged you, Connor. To make you think you cheated. I knew you never would, but we thought if you believed you'd done it, you'd let me sleep with Paul. I'm so sorry, but that was all I wanted, to sleep with him, nothing else." "Why? What did I do wrong?" he asked, pain and confusion in his voice. "You did nothing wrong. It was all me," I admitted, tears welling up in my eyes. "Sherry kept telling me how great Paul was in bed, and when we got married, we were both virgins. I just wanted to see what I was missing. I'm sorry, darling." You've never broken your vows. You're a good man. You were going to let me believe I'd betrayed you, he asked, shock evident in his voice. How long did you plan this? How did you drug me? Didn't you care I could have died? I knew you wouldn't die, I tried to explain. I almost called it off when you got so sick, but when you got better, I thought we could go ahead with the plan. We came up with it a month ago. We couldn't get you interested in Sherry, so we resorted to this. I just needed to sleep with Paul, it was something new, and I was so excited. What did you give me? He demanded. Sherry stole something from the hospital where she volunteers, I confessed. I don't know what it was, but it worked. Too well. She tried to seduce you, but you didn't. You weren't interested. How long, Jennifer? How long were you going to let me live in this hell? He asked, his voice trembling. Oh, honey, I pleaded, I thought that once it was over, once I came back to you a few days later, we could move past it. I still love you. We can get through this. Love me? Love me, he shouted. Connor disappeared from the screen, leaving me in a panic. Then I heard the front door slam. He was coming out of the house, wild-eyed, still gripping the gun. The police started shouting at him, but Toby calmed them down. Love doesn't mean you try to kill me, Jen, Connor yelled back. You don't try to make the person you love feel like a rapist. The officers were still yelling for him to drop the gun, but Toby was doing his best to stop them. I was wrong, Connor, I shouted, desperate to reach him. I've got to calm him down, I thought. He'll forgive me, he always does. I never meant to hurt you. I was just obsessed. I tried to run toward him, but an officer held me back. You made me think I was an adulterer. Do you have any idea how much that destroyed me? You think I hurt you so badly that you sacrificed your fidelity to some stranger just to get back at me? Connor was pacing back and forth across the yard. I can't do this, Jen. You betrayed me. You could have killed me. Then you tried to kill my heart, my soul, my love. Now you think we can just go back to normal? What was supposed to happen next time? Would I die so you could have an affair without guilt? The world around us disappeared, leaving just the two of us and the pain I had caused. No, it was just a one-time thing, I cried. I would never do it again, Connor. I love you so much. It's over, Jen, he said, shaking his head. I loved you, and you did this. Goodbye. I screamed as he put the gun in his mouth. I couldn't watch. How could I have been so stupid? I waited for the sound, the explosion, but it never came. Instead, I heard laughter. I turned to the officer holding me, confused. He was laughing. Several others were, too. What was happening? Horrified, I looked back at Connor. He had a disgusted expression on his face and was coughing. The sight reminded me of our cat coughing up a hairball. He took the gun out of his mouth. Lemon, he said, spitting in disgust. Whose idea was this? Connor pulled the trigger a few more times. They are all lemons, he added, and the officers laughed. Nice one, guys, he said sarcastically. But I always carry a reload. He pulled another clip from his pocket and loaded the gun. Then, to my shock, he put it back in his mouth and pulled the trigger again. Cherry, he said with a grin. I love that flavor. He turned to the stunned reporters, laughter echoing from him. Oh, you thought you were here to rescue me, he asked. Honey, remember last week when I was testing that new security equipment for Max? Well, one of the gadgets was an electronic ear. Guess what? I overheard you and Sherry plotting your little scheme. You backed me into a corner, but then I got mad. The officer holding me took my hands and cuffed them behind my back. You couldn't be charged then, dear, Connor continued. It would have just been my word against yours. That's when the officers and I came up with this plan, he said, pointing to the circus around us. We didn't expect the news van to show up, but we regrouped. Connor grinned. It was so easy with you. Now, my loving wife, we can finally charge you. I wonder what they'll come up with. Aggravated assault? Abuse of a controlled substance? Of course, they'll blame Sherry, but thanks for your confession. And we aired it live, too. Do you think your parents watched? His sarcasm cut me to my core. An officer approached me, slipping a blue piece of paper into my pocket. You were served at 2:18 p.m. on June 8th, the officer said. Served? I whispered, disbelief washing over me. This couldn't be happening. I just wanted to feel young again, to have one last fling before becoming a mom, I thought. Connor smiled coldly. You think I'd stay married to someone like you?